It's a pleasure to be here today. What does it mean to belong? Not just to a country, but to a community, to a cause. What does it mean to carry multiple identities? Refugee, student, civil servant, and still feel whole? These are the questions that have stayed in me and shaped my life and my work. My name is Rabia Nasimi, and as you've heard, I currently work as a civil servant in the UK government, across research and policy. But my journey into this space began long before I stepped into government buildings or university lecture halls. I arrived to the UK as a refugee, and I have never shed that label. Instead, I've chosen to cherish it, to speak openly about it, and to use it as a bridge, a way to challenge stereotypes, break taboos, and showcase the immense contributions that refugees bring into communities when they're given the opportunity. I see my story not just one of survival, but one of transformation and increasingly of responsibility. To bring my lived experience into spaces where decisions are being made, policies are being shaped, and futures are being imagined. When we talk about our common home, we're not just referring to a physical space. We're speaking about a practice of welcoming, of co-creating, of building systems that value every life equally. One of my earliest memories in the UK is of my family trying to navigate a completely unfamiliar system. I was 5 years old when my family migrated from Afghanistan. We had no contacts, no friends, no one to ask even the simplest of questions. And that silence, that absence, made something very clear to my parents. We needed community-based provisions. And that realization led to my father to found a charity that continues to run today in the UK to support other newly arrived families just like ours, to find home, a common home. Moving on, my academic journey has also been central to this transformation. I've studied at 3 different UK universities, the last being at the University of Cambridge. And nearly always, the guiding question in all of my research and academic discussions was around, what does it mean to be from Afghanistan? What does it mean to be a refugee and a British all at once? This is the thread that I will carry through in my lightning talks and poster presentations. Topics like migration, identity, home, and belonging are not abstract. They're deeply personal. Academia gave me the tools to understand not only where I came from, but also who I'm becoming. And throughout that journey, I found myself shifting roles. So I was not only a student, but also a researcher, an advocate, a community member, and also a policy contributor. I realized that these roles don't have to operate in silos, and they're strongest when they intersect. And in the field of academia at the moment, in the UK, one of the inspiring developments is that universities are starting to take up labels such as University of Sanctuary, and they're applying to get this status. And what this program does is encourage universities to become safe and supportive spaces for people seeking sanctuary, providing scholarships, providing research opportunities, and supporting refugees in campus life. But I think this is also more than just a policy. It's a symbolic and practical commitment to recognize the human right to education and to welcoming people who've been displaced not only as burdens, but as contributors, learners, and leaders. And I'd like to see this model move away from just being in the UK and something that we think about globally. How can universities become universities of sanctuary and have that as part of their key aims and objectives? Moving back to my family story and the organisation that my father set up, part of my kind of early career whilst I was studying was also shaped there, and it's the Afghanistan and Central Asian Association. Through working at this charity and supporting refugees, I saw the direct impact of community-led support for refugees and asylum seekers, from English language classes to legal aid to mental health support to just having a friend to speak to. And this led to some of my contributions in academic work, such as a chapter that I've written for a book titled Community Work with Migrant and Refugee Women. And what's interesting about my contribution to this chapter was that I was an insider and an outsider in this research. Insider because I was also from the background of the participants that we research in, so I was also a refugee, but I was outsider in that I had the academic knowledge and academic lens to look at the discussions, to understand the themes and the emerging stories. And I think this insider-outsider relationship and the reflexivity that it gives to research is very powerful. It shows us that we have a significant role to play in ensuring that we work with practitioners and those on the ground in terms of research. So, for example, when accessing vulnerable groups or seldom heard groups, the way we can best do that is through community-based provision, because they have access, they have trust, they know who the organisation is, and it's not like a cold call where researchers just go out looking for contributors. They're already part of an organisation, they're part of a body that you can then tap into. So I hope that universities across the world can work on that and develop that further. And another area that inspires me within the charity sector or the NGO sector is the rise of lived experience leadership. And I remember once that there was a funding opportunity in the UK for charities to apply to, funding to support leaders who are from refugee backgrounds or from migrant backgrounds that are leading organisations. And the reason I think that's incredibly important is because sometimes these organisations tend to have limited capacity to grow because they don't know how to navigate the system, they don't know how to apply for funding, they don't know how to be seen and heard. So I think that's another initiative that I thought was very timely, in that we support lived experience leaders that are running groups to be able to take the next step. So they're not just limited to small grants, they can actually partner with global organizations. They can take the next step because they're very close to the issue that they're trying to support. And if we support them, we're actually also uplifting a whole sort of generation of refugees and migrants. We need to go further, I think, based on my personal story, my academic story, what I've done at work. I think globally we must fund and scale grassroots initiative. We must improve governance for small organizations so that they can access those bigger funding and partnership collaborations. We must elevate lived experience, and we must ensure equity in research, funding, and policy. So just moving on, I will try and skip through some of the detail to say, I think we must also reimagine the systems we're part of. Because there's people from different sectors here today, I think we just need to think, or like close our eyes, as Lara said, and just think, if you're a researcher, can you think about who's missing from your work? And how can you build relationships with them? If you're a student, know that your lived experience is not a barrier, but it can also be the source of insight and strength. If you're a practitioner, invest in those relationships. And if you're a funder or policymaker, elevate lived experience. And if you're a community member, know that your story matters more than you think. And none of us can do this work alone. Whilst individual action matters, lasting change demands something greater, a shared commitment to reimagining the systems we're part of. That means building research partnerships, that are not just about communities, but with them. It means embedding lived experience into the very DNA of our institutions, not just as token gestures, but as leadership. And it means confronting power dynamics that shape who gets to publish, who gets funded, and who is heard. And when I reflect on my own journey from refugee child to UK civil servant, I don't see a straight line. I see a web of support, trust, challenge, opportunity, and persistence. And I see the incredible value of intersectional spaces like this one, where we come together not just to talk about migration and education, but to reshape them together with our pre-existing experiences. It's nothing new, it's all within our sort of skill set. We just need to kind of bring it out again to help reshape them together. I also want to touch on something which doesn't necessarily touch on migration or refugees who are already out of their country, and it's the situation inside Afghanistan, where we talk about those who have sought refuge and have migrated, but there's many, many, many individuals who continue to remain unseen and unheard. And in places like Afghanistan, for those of you who have followed the news, there's a blackout. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no connectivity. I personally have tried to reach out to some family members, and you can see from WhatsApp that it's not being delivered, and that just creates great concern for a country that's already in so much devastation. So I think let's also take this conversation a step further. If our aim is to truly mobilize knowledge and partnerships in response to critical issues, then part of our responsibility is also to find ways of reaching those who cannot yet reach us and ensuring that they're not forgotten in our plans and our practice. And if there are any members of sort of the Italian government or officials that have plans to support people like that, I'd be happy to have a conversation, because I'm in touch with lots of people individually, women's rights activists, human rights activists, who unfortunately have looked for any possible legal pathway to leave the country, but that's not always readily available. And so to conclude, as we look forward together, I hope we remember that our common home is not a location, but a practice to listen, to accompany, to co-create, until research translates into dignity, safety, and belonging for every single family seeking it. Lived experience is leadership. Research is resistance, and collaboration is power. Thank you.